All right, in this movie we're going to set up the big final project that you'll do in InDesign. We've come to the point where we've learned several different little things in InDesign, and now it's time for you to take all those things and put them to work. And let me show you first of all kind of where we're headed with this. What we're going to work on is called a trifold brochure. All right, and I can hop over here and I've got a image up here on, I did a Google search on a trifold brochure, and it would be this kind of thing. You've seen them before. It's you know, a brochure that somebody hands out for some reason. It can be folded into thirds like you see in this picture right here, and it has information on these panels, and there's a front and a back to it and that kind of thing. And Adobe InDesign is a great way to lay out a trifold brochure, and it's really a pretty typical thing. You run into this actually a fair amount. Here's another example. It's only one side of a trifold brochure, but you see what I mean. It's got like these three panels where there's information on the left and in the center and in the right. And you'll find that you don't have to stick with all these, you know, these separate panels. You can if you want to, but there's a lot of ways that you can lay them out. And I did mine, and I'm going to turn, I'm in preview mode right now, so you can't see all of the panels and things like that. But now I'm back in the normal mode where you can see all of the, you know, all the frames around everything, and you can see the three panels that go across there, and that would be like for the outside of my brochure, and then here would be the inside of my brochure right here. Now I'm going to talk you through all the options that you have on this, and then I'll come back to this and show you a little bit about getting started, and then off you'll go. On your Drive L at school, you will have a folder set aside for this InDesign brochure project, and it'll have all this stuff in it. And the first thing that we're going to look at is this brochure project PDF right here, and I'm going to double click that and open it up, and we'll kind of talk through this one. This is a bigger project, 75 points for this one. The idea is to create a trifold brochure using InDesign. All right, now here are the required elements. The pages are going to have to be in landscape orientation. That's really the way most trifold brochures work, so we're going to do landscape orientation. You will have to design for both the outside of the brochure and the inside. If you think of it, that sheet would have stuff on both sides, so when you fold it into thirds, there's going to be stuff on both sides of that paper. Now you don't actually have to print these, but you do have to design an outside and an inside, and I'll kind of get you started on that. Each panel of the brochure has to contain information which could come in the form of, you know, it could be type, it could be photos, it could be graphics, but you can't just have an empty panel on the brochure, right? You can't just have like 1/3 of one side that is just empty and it's got nothing on it. Not allowed on this project. Got to be something in every panel. All right, you got to include text. All right, which would be some information about your topic. You have to include graphics, which could be photos, it could be, you know, artwork. But what I'm getting at here is there's not allowing text-only brochures. Nope. And also can't have photo-only brochures. I want a mixture of text and graphics and photos, and I want you to work that all into the design. You can have some white space. It doesn't have to be so full and so crowded that you can't really, you know, make heads or tails of what's on your brochure. And white space is not necessarily just white, it just means empty space. All right, so if you've kind of created like a colored background for your brochure, it just means empty space is what it is. And when I say a compelling overall appearance, you know, it ought to show a little planning, a little thought, a little effort. It's the same kind of thing I'm always after. I'm after some effort out of you in the things that we do in this class. And so that's really all I'm saying here. You want it to look decent. You want to try to make it look good. All right, now here are some getting started kind of things, and I'll go over this here in InDesign in a minute, but you'll have to do this from scratch. So you'll start InDesign, you'll create a new document. It's got to be landscape orientation. You're going to want to set the number of columns to 3, the margins to 2 picas, that's like for the gutters, and then open the pages panel and create a new page so you have 2 pages, and that allows you to design for the inside and for the outside. Now here are some options. I've set this all up. so that I've given you a whole bunch of material that you could use. So you could do the same thing I did in my demo. You could create what would be a brochure for what's called the Tough Mudder. I don't know if you've ever heard of Tough Mudder. It's an obstacle course event, and they hold them all over the United States and actually in several other countries as well. And you can do a brochure about Tough Mudder if you want to do that. The advantage that brings is that I've provided a whole bunch of pictures, a whole bunch of graphics, some information about Tough Mudder. It's all right there on DriveL. You wouldn't have to go out and search for your own idea, your own information, your own graphics, your own pictures. They're all right there. Now, I'm giving you an option here. You know, it says you can use Tough Mudder as the topic of your brochure, or you can choose a topic of your own. It's okay with me if you got an idea and you want to design a brochure for something of your own. Like it could be for you know, for support of the American Cancer Foundation, or you know, it could be, you could make a brochure about anything you want. It's just a matter of you having to kind of do the work of gathering the information and the materials and the pictures and all that kind of thing. That's not impossible. It's a little more work. If you choose, I put a note here, if you choose a topic of your own, you'll have to collect information and graphics. All the stuff for Tough Mudder is located on DriveL. All right. Also, you know, just a few reminders here. You can do work with, you can make some things in Adobe Illustrator and bring it over into InDesign if you want to. That's not required, but you can. You could do a little bit of work in Photoshop and bring things from Photoshop into InDesign. You could do that if you can. With anything that you're working with, like text, pictures, things like that, you can use those effects like glows or drop shadows or bevel emboss, and they're, you know, they're available right there in InDesign. You can use those. And you can, especially if you're doing the Tough Mudder thing, you can, I've got a PDF in here that has a lot of information on it, and you can copy and paste the text, and it saves you a lot of time. You don't really have to type all of it. You can copy it and paste it, and you may have to space it out and format it some, but copying and pasting does save you time. As you're working on this, save your work on your network drive on Drive H. Suggest a file name, just brochure would be fine. And then when you get it all done, when it's all finished, you got to drag it and drop it into your Turn In folder on DriveL. All right, now let's next get back over here to InDesign, where you see my example right here, and this would be like the outside of my brochure. I've got, you know, one panel over here that shows some of their sponsors. This would be kind of, this middle one would be kind of like a main panel. It has their logo, 2013 Tough Mudder. It has a picture from one of the events, and over on this panel I've got this, they use these as Mudder facts. They always say this, that you don't take themselves too seriously. You cannot complete a Tough Mudder course alone. Another little graphic in there. The Tough Mudder pledge is on here. And then if I go to page 2, which would be like for the inside of my document, you know, again, I took a whole bunch of stuff, information that I have in that PDF that I have for you on DriveL. Things like this is kind of their slogan or their logo or whatever, their tagline, the premier obstacle course series in the world. I put some pictures on here that came from previous events. Again, you see their logo here. The obstacle list, they have all these crazy obstacles in here. One of them is an electroshock thing where they shock you when you're it's crazy. You can check it out, like at toughmudder.com. You'll find out more about it. But I put this thing at the bottom, register at toughmudder.com. I have a list of their events that are coming up. So, you know, the big thing here is design it in InDesign, lay it out in InDesign, and get the job done. Put together a brochure. Okay, now I might just for a moment hop up here over on my pages panel to my master pages and show you that on the A master up here on the left side of the A master, I put an orange frame, and I also put a picture on there and drop the transparency way down. You can see that picture, and that's just on the left hand side. Over on the right hand side of the A master, I don't have that picture in there. It's just the orange frame. I just drew an orange frame like we did in one of our previous assignments. And so with those being on the master here, they show up here, like on page 1 it has that orange frame behind it, and on page 2 it has that orange frame with the picture all faded behind it. All right, so I did a little bit of work with the master pages up here. That's not required on this assignment, but you certainly can if you want to. All right, now getting started on this is going to work like this. Once you're in InDesign here, and I'll just close my brochure here for a minute. Once you're in InDesign, you can create a new document, and here's what you're going to need. You're going to need 3 columns. All right, and I'm going to bump the gutter up to 2 picas. I'm going to keep clicking this until it gets up to 2 picas, 2P0. There we go. And you could, if you want to change the margins a little bit, you know, you could give yourself a little bit more room to work by putting the margins to 2 picas as well. That's kind of up to you. It's your call. But I'm going to have 3 columns, and I'm going to make the gutter 2 picas, and I went ahead and made the margins 2 picas. Now when I click OK, I got to make sure we're in landscape orientation as well. All right, so I want landscape orientation. So I'll click OK there. And this is what it's going to look like when it all starts off, and I can create a new page, all right, by using my new page button on the pages panel. And remember that these boxes that you see here are not text frames necessarily. They're just guides. They show you, you know, right in here would be one panel of your brochure, and then this area in here would be gutter. That's kind of where a fold would be. You would fold it right there. And then you got another panel right here, and you got fold area or gutter right here where you don't really put anything in the gutter. That's kind of empty space usually. And then you got another panel here. Now you saw on mine that I actually kind of, and I could pull this back up here, I could do open recent, especially on the inside of mine, on this part over here, and let me get to set this back to normal. You know, a lot of these things, I just went right through the gutter on some of those things. So sometimes you can break that rule. You can put things kind of through the gutter if you want to. All right, so what you do again here is here you got your 2 pages, and you got your columns there, and you begin thinking about, okay, you know, what do I want to do? How do I want to lay this out? I got to put in pictures, I got to put in text. You can use some of these rectangular frames here and draw them in, and you can fill them up if you want to. The design of the thing is actually, it's really up to you. And remember, you can do the Tough Mudder idea if you want to, but if you want to take off on some other topic of your own, you can. So this is your final InDesign project and assignment to put together a tri-fold brochure using InDesign to lay it all out, and it's going to kind of rely on a lot of those tricks that we've learned so far about, you know, how to put pictures in, and how you could have to thread columns together, and you might have to do some text wrapping, and it just kind of depends on how you want to design it. All right, well, that's a description of the assignment, and you'll have at least 2 days to get this done, and I think it's originally scheduled for 3 days, so you should have plenty of time to work on this and get it done. It's time for you to jump in and go to it.